Good morning, everybody. First of all, good morning, Scott.
Good morning.
Good morning to those of you who have chosen to join us today. This is historic in many ways because I, in many years, have never ever thought of doing a candidate forum by looking at a camera, having bright lights in my face, and getting to talk one-on-one with another person. It's historic also because after 4 years, 2 terms in the state legislature, 4 years on city council, and now 12, I've decided it's time for someone younger and more energetic to run for mayor. And it's historic because you are I'm leaving and you're coming.
Yes.
And that's very exciting because that's what it takes to keep a community divided. You know, one of the questions when I used to help people run campaigns, I always asked was, are you prepared to lose? And most people don't really think about that and the consequences of it. And then I say, and they're really shocked, are you prepared to win? Because to some people, winning is losing because all of a sudden it's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility, a lot of meetings.
Right.
So I thought maybe you'd like to speak to that issue about your concerns about winning or losing.
Well, yes, I'm certainly prepared to lose because, I mean, that's, what could possibly happen. But I'm also prepared to win because if I win, then that will give me the opportunity to actually be able to do the actual work. Yeah.
Well, you are preparing to win, and you are going to win because we're getting an opportunity to speak to all these people who are going to speak to their friends. And while people know your name and may have seen you perform or gone and dealt with you at your work, they don't really know who the real Scott Gibbs is.
Right.
And people want to know that. They even more than any issue. They want to know about integrity, they want to know about trust, they want to know about accessibility. And you've done a lot of thinking about in this decision, more than many people. You didn't just jump in. So you want to share a little bit about why you're running?
Sure. And hello, Beaufort. And hello and good morning to you, Mayor. And thank you so much for doing this with me. And so, this is a step out on faith for me. So this is not something that I thought about years and years ago that I would do. When the call came out, or the announcement came out about there were going to be 2 seats available for city council, I looked at that as a call to action. I had already been involved in the community. I've been doing community service, civic service, for the rest of my life. I think the only time I left Beaufort, for an extended period of time was when I went to college. And so I've been doing community work. So this is a call to action, asking citizens who want to help push the city forward. And so I'm answering that call. I think it's the timing. The timing's right. For me, when you asked me some time ago, I knew right away that was not the time for me. This time when it came, I felt it was right for me.
For those who don't know, I've been encouraging Scott to do this, and I'm putting my full support behind him because he's an example for others. Someone who has worked in the community, lived in the community, cared about the community, who's willing to take the time that it takes to step up and to help focus on policies that matter. And I know when we first talked, you said, I'm just going to talk about what's in my heart, Billy. I'm not going to be a normal candidate.
Exactly.
And one of the things that is in your heart, that you told me was in your heart from your experience with running, really, with others, the leadership conference every year where you draw in people, is young people.
Right.
So let's talk about young people a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk about what they need and what it is, the city, how we should be paying better attention to the signals that they're sending to us.
Yeah, and I've been involved with young people since the 1980s. I guess I'm dating myself now. But the 1980s, and that first grassroots organization that I started with was Carrie's Low Country Modeling, and we worked with young people with fashion shows. And we thought we were just going to be doing a regular fashion show, but we realized we were helping young people with self-image and self-esteem, and to motivate them. And so that right there, I knew was one of those areas that I wanted to be involved in, helping the young people. And so out of that grassroots organization came the Beaufort County Youth Conference. And I think we'll be 28 years old. We've been actually working with the middle and high school students, to help them become productive citizens. So it's always been in my heart to work with young people, and that's what I'm still doing today.
I work with leadership, and I work with, we created something.
Right.
Maybe you'll inherit it when you're on council. I'm not sure whether the next mayor will be. We call it Young Leaders of Beaufort, where we take 4 students from each of the 9 different middle schools. We bring them together once a month for a full day to talk about leadership, to experience leadership. And one of the things that just rings so loudly and clearly from these young people is there's nothing to do in Beaufort.
Exactly.
And so, the city turned over by giving the ball fields and the tennis courts, Charles Lynn Brown Center, to the county. But as mayor, I see that not working.
Right.
I see that we have many of our kids who are not athletes, are not prepared for structured programs, who are left out. And on the street, and on the street, there's trouble for any child,
right?
Because they're at a point where they're learning, they're absorbing, they're like sponges. So
right.
I know that you live in a neighborhood where that is a unique problem, but it's not unique to the city.
Right.
So do you have any ideas there?
Yeah, and that's one of my issues as well. I look at those children who are not involved in after-school activities, and what do they do when they come home? And we have no place established for young people to go. And I remember when I grew up in Beaufort, the Charles Lynn Brown, it was the Green Street Gym, that was called then. That was the hub of our community. And you always had activities there, and you also had adults there who supervised you, but you learned from those adults. Because I grew up in a time where everybody was your parent. You know what I'm saying? So you couldn't get away with a lot, and we've unfortunately got away from that. So I would like to work towards seeing if we can get that more active through the city.
I remember your father's homecoming.
Yes.
It was talked about how he was the hub.
Right.
If you went home and there was nobody home, you went to see
That's right.
Mr. Gibbs, Leroy Gibbs. If you needed your bicycle repaired, you went to see
Mr. Gibbs.
Mr. Gibbs. And children need that place that where they feel safe, they feel secure, where they have role models, which unfortunately the reality is they don't always have the kinds of role models.
Yeah.
So Charles Lynn Brown Center is one, but I think all of our afternoon and athletic programs, the neighborhood outreach centers, the Boys and Girls Clubs, they all need to have much more community support, because if Beaufort's going to stay authentic, we need to do what? We need to keep these young people here to raise families.
Exactly.
And to do that, we need to jobs. Well,
yeah, we definitely need jobs, and for those people that come here, I call them essential workers, our teachers, our doctors, lawyers. They can come to our area, but we don't have affordable homes for them. And so I know that's something that I want to look more into, and seeing where we can do that, because that'll help with our economy here in Beaufort. Because I hate for them to get the jobs here, and then they have to live in Bluffton or Hilton Head, and because we don't have any place here for them to live.
Sure. I think that one of the two core reasons that I'm so enthusiastic is that, maybe it's three. You're a listener, you're a bridge builder, and you bring people together. And so many of these issues are intergovernmental. The county PALS programs runs the gym, runs the ball fields, and we need to do a better job at the governments working together. And that's sort of your thing, because you have always brought people, whether it's to build a chorus, whether it's to put programs around the social service needs of people, whether it's young people.
Right.
So, you are a team builder. And
right. Yeah, and I was always about unity. That was always my thing. I thought that you could get a whole lot more done if you got everybody together on the same train of thought. Mm-hmm. So that was always one of those things that I worked towards, is making sure that everybody was a part. I never wanted to feel separated, because everybody should be there to work together to come out with a good outcome.
When you use the word unity, it strikes a chord. Mm-hmm. If I watch the television today and I see how divided the country is. And one piece of the history is that for 25 years now, since Alice Wright and Fred Washington retired from City Council, we've not had an African American serve on Beaufort City Council, which is wrong, because it's not that African Americans alone lose, the whole city loses, because by having the diversity on council. Mm-hmm. So, you could be a ceiling breaker, a glass breaker, I forget what the term they use, by being the first African American elected.
Wow.
That's a responsibility.
Yeah.
But share your thoughts about that.
Well, my thoughts about that is that I'm actually, first of all, I'm running for a seat on the city council, and I happen to be an African American, so I don't want anyone to label me as the African American that's running for the seat. We have, I think it's about 6 of us running, and we are all running for one of those seats. And so I don't want folk to separate me and put me in a box, because I'm about unity and working for everybody.
Another kid who grew up in Beaufort.
Yeah.
Who wants to make your hometown better.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
exactly.
That is refreshing, and it's one of the reasons that I have always had concerns about single-member districts, because I don't think it's healthy to have a black person representing black people, a Mossy Oaks person representing Mossy Oaks, a historic district person. We need the benefit of our at-large system, where all 5 of you are accountable to everybody in the city.
Right.
Because that's the only way you can set priority. And I agree with that. I agree that we all should be working for the same cause. I don't think that we all live in this city, so let's come together and work together in this city. So separating us, I don't know if I subscribe to that. So I don't, and I'm glad to hear you don't.
And
I would suspect that those of you who are out there watching us don't. We have a fabulous city. We have lots of potential. One of the concerns of people, however, is A, lack of authenticity, that we become too much of one thing, and B, the fact that we are losing our younger people and our younger families.
Exactly, because they're graduating from college and they're not coming back here. Unlike what I did when I graduated, and I had plenty of offers to get jobs somewhere else, but I always wanted to come back home, to give back to where I came from and those people who poured into me to help make me who I am. So I always wanted to come back and help, and I think along the way we've lost that in teaching that to our young people. And that we got to look at getting jobs that's going to be attractive to keeping them here, because they're now unfortunately looking at us as a retirement. You know what I'm saying? And so I think we need to work on trying to change that image.
Yeah. And we all brag, and with good reason, about the authenticity of Beaufort. But we sometimes forget that the authenticity is making sure that we have working young families that are a part of our community, that we can host tourists, that we welcome retirees. We want them to be engaged too.
Right.
But if we miss that, we have the risk of becoming anywhere touristy USA, which I don't think is what this community wants.
Well,
That's
that's clearly not what I want. So, so I would certainly be, advocating for let's work towards making a change.
We have a question from a commenter.
Yes. Yes.
This is Purvis Levon Walker, and he has a question: how do we preserve the northwest quadrant from big developers? Cut in.
Okay. So I don't know specifically how we would do that. But I'm sure we would need to look into that, because I know that's a great issue and of concern.
I'll answer it briefly, but this
Yes.
is really about Scott, not me.
Right.
But
right.
in answering it, it may stroke some
Yeah.
ideas in you. We've got to get the neighborhood first to love itself again, to have a feel of identity. We've got to get people to understand that historically land ownership is really important, coming out of the Reconstruction era, owning land. But owning land and letting it die, owning a historic cottage and letting it fall apart, is not a celebration of what our history has been. And so I have always encouraged people you got to love your community first. You can't stop someone, because it's your brother and your sister who owns property, who's selling that property to a developer who is leaving. So we got to start first there. I've been working with the Stokes family, who own the cottage on Congress Street, about maybe we could make it into a house museum on the Reconstruction era, restoring it to show the history. I've never known why the Northwest Quadrant was called the Northwest Quadrant. It's got to have a better name. It's got a history. It was really started by what they called the colored troops, officers in the colored troops in the Union Army, who at the end of the war were given preferential treatment. And at a bargain, they could buy blocks, and they brought in their families, and you had a cottage community. But we've first got to get the neighborhood and the property owners to take ownership and to take pride. And then we need to look to historic Beaufort. We need to look to the city of Beaufort. Now that we're part of a national park, that's another resource and another reason. But my sense is that many of the people, because they're absentee landowners or because it's heirs property, have retreated rather than run back. Now you've stayed in your neighborhood, and what you said would be true, because I know right in my direct neighborhood, all of those homes are vacant, and my neighbors who live there, the people that I grew up with, live there, have unfortunately died out, and unfortunately the children, the relatives, are not coming back to save those places. So. You would be correct, I think. We need a concerted effort to get people to claim ownership of the past. We need to get them to think and to come to the city and say, we're tired of being described as just a piece of the map, the Northwest Quadrant. We have a history, and we ought to work together with our association and with the city council to name it and take pride in it.
Right.
You can't, to answer the question, from that person who asked the question, is the city is not in a position, government should not be in a position to pick winners and losers. If someone decides they want to sell a piece of property and another person wants to buy that property, what right does the city have to get involved in that? So I think we need to reinstill the importance of ownership, which is so much a part of the tradition and part of our history, that people will be proud to own land there. And even if they don't choose to come back and live in a family home, they could restore that home. It could be a short-term rental, it could be a rental, or it could be, a starter home for a child or for a grandchild, to bring the vitality and maintain the diversity in that neighborhood.
Yeah.
My sense is that with your deep roots in that neighborhood, you've lived that problem.
Exactly.
But you also know the people who grew up there with you, who have, for one reason or not, chosen not to come
Come
back.
back.
Or allowed property to
Right.
become neglected. So you're in a unique position to be an ambassador, to learn that history, to create the community pride,
Right.
and then to work with others. I won't be mayor, but one of my personal interests, of course, is restoring and learning our history,
Mhm.
because I think so many of the problems that we face today, we can find answers if
Yeah.
we go back to the real history that was never taught to you or to me
Right.
when we went
Right.
to school.
And
So-
for that person that asked, I mean, they could certainly, bring some of their ideas. What are their ideas about going forth with something like that? So, and I certainly would be willing to hear that, because that's what I want to be, somebody that's going to be that voice to, for those who are out there. Yeah.
When I first became mayor, there was an effort to tear down some of the historic structures, and I said, I know I'm the new kid on the block,
Mm-hmm.
but give me a little time, and we created the Northwest Quadrant Neighborhood Task Force,
Right.
and we came up with 100 different ideas of what could be done,
Mm-hmm.
and many of them were implemented. Everything from helping people clean up their yards to taking old mattresses and furniture, which are fire hazards,
Mm-hmm.
out of the roofs, to finding specific needs, and maybe it's time to 12 years later revisit that.
Yeah.
Look at that list of 100.
Yes.
Mark off the ones we did, and then what are the new ones?
Okay.
One of the powers of our city that a lot of people don't know is the neighborhood organizations,
Mm-hmm.
because they do meet every month. The leaders of each of them meet every month,
Mm-hmm.
and most of them, some of them are called neighborhood watches, back from the days when there was more concern about crime. But they meet separately, and as a member of council, you'll
Mhm.
want to go to them
Yeah.
to hear what all the neighborhoods. But then they come together, and with the police department, the fire department, the Waste Pro, and all department heads of the city and the city manager, they meet
Mhm.
once a month to talk about the respective neighborhoods, about trends, about crime prevention, about fire prevention, and how they work together as neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of building that I think the city's ready for again, particularly after everything around us is so chaotic
Yeah.
and discombobulated, and we're divided. Beaufort's very fortunate because I think we, by and large, are sticking together.
Yeah. And so the time is just like I said, the time is right now for us to basically come together with some of those major concerns like that. Because if you never bring it to the front, then no one knows that it's a concern. I was happy to hear, that caller had that concern. Yeah.
Speaking of coming together, you've done a remarkable job with your friend Terry Heron and Anita
Yeah.
of bringing people together
Right.
around music, which is obviously a huge skill you have. I always embarrass him and talk about your sweet voice, but it is a sweet voice. It is a calming voice. But you've been able to pull people together, and recently we started, the city created a Cultural Affairs Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think that culture is so much important of our identity.
Right.
And you've worked obviously forever,
Yeah.
probably since you were this tall.
I promise you.
For the Ms. Pazan put you together on the Gullah,
Gullah
Festival,
Festival.
and,
Mhm.
and you've not left that,
Right.
but you've worked with Gullah kinfolk,
Mm-hmm.
and that celebration of culture, people knowing who they are,
Exactly.
is something that I think that you bring because it's something you've been doing,
Yeah.
and it's obviously natural to you.
And it is, and for a long time, we were taught not to embrace our culture, and so I was able to do that, especially with the Gullah kinfolk and with the Gullah Festival. Also, you mentioned Terry Heron, who I work with. What we do with a unity choir. And we had this wonderful, great idea that we would bring everybody from different ethnicities, from religions, and bring them all together, singing off of the same sheet of music. How would that work? And it works. And I often tell them at the rehearsal, I said, how awesome this is. And we might be taking this lightly, but this is a great thing. If America could work this way, how awesome would America be? So that was easy for me. Yeah.
And it transcends music.
Yeah.
It's
and it did.
almost
And it did.
It could be neighborhood cleanups.
Yeah.
Everybody
Yeah.
coming together.
Yeah.
It could be painting fire hydrants with everybody
Right.
coming together. I personally believe that the good in everybody's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have a spirit that finds that good in
Yeah.
people and motivates them to sort of set aside preconceived notions and give it. The mass choir, the unity choir, I've been to several of the events, and it's really heartening as the mayor to see so many people coming from different places,
Right.
and they're brought together by their spirits, by their singing ability, and by wanting to be something bigger
Yes.
than the little world they live in. And I think you've demonstrated a potential for
Yeah.
that, and I admire that.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really most comfortable doing. And I knew that we were in a time that we had to do something because we're unfortunately so divided now. And I didn't want that for Beaufort. I didn't grow up like that. You know, we were separated by areas as I was growing up, but I never felt a sense of separation like that. I always remembered when the Water Festival was our premier event as I was growing up, and I was always a part of their talent show. And I want to say that I won when I was in the talent show. So I was actually won. So it was always
you're
open.
blushing.
I know I am. And I still have that plaque somewhere, but it's somewhere. But I always felt that Beaufort was that place that you could do anything that you wanted to do. You didn't have to be a certain color to do that. It was always opened. Whether we took that opportunity to do that, I don't know. So for me, I'm about working for everybody and wanting everybody to work together. So that's one of my big things.
Well, that's how we bring out our best. You
Yeah.
know, that reminds me of this, a little controversial, but last night on
Yes,
City Council,
I watched.
we voted to extend it.
And thank you.
We have looked at the data. We know it's made a difference.
Right.
And it's made an exponential difference in
Yeah.
Beaufort. I think we're waiting now very anxiously because the merchants wanted to open up the streets and have
Right.
another sort of night on the town event, which is a gathering larger than the
Right,
government one
right.
now. But I commend people. They fought it, but by and large,
Yes.
people are wearing these, and these are the kind of tough decisions that you have to make, where you have to forget the one person who's nagging you. Not forget them, register them, but think about what is
for everybody.
really good for everybody.
That's right.
And that can be tough.
Yeah.
Because your best friend can say, "I'm not going to wear a mask. You can't make me wear a mask." And you say, "You have no choice."
Right.
Because if you want to be my friend, I'm wearing a mask. And if you're not wearing a mask, you're not respecting me like I'm respecting you. And Beaufort is a community where I think we're capable of doing that. We've done that for many years.
Yeah, and I'm saddened that we're having to make a decision like that where it's not championed by everybody. There's controversy to this. I cannot believe that something that's going to protect us that people are against. And I know people have their rights, and I understand that. But on the council, you do have to think about everyone. Unfortunately, or fortunately, yeah.
But there's some who are left beside who get upset.
Yeah.
And they get over it. But
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
my strategy has always been those who are most upset I continue to pay attention to because I want them to know that they're heard. Sometimes people think that leadership's about talking. I think leadership, it took me a while, is about listening and absorbing what everybody's saying
Right.
and then processing it and then getting with the council and doing the same thing. have our work sessions, which I think are really good opportunities, and we tend to build consensus. You know, there's some other issues that are not as, quote, exciting or sexy, but as critical to the quality of life and the growth of the city, and one of them is stormwater.
Right.
You know, we have we've experienced stormwater systems that have not been taken care of, and that's complicated because many of them belong to the state, but the state doesn't take care of them. And so the burden falls on us because we've got the people. You know, you'll find on city council, you're where the rubber hits the road.
Right.
No matter who's responsible, they think you're responsible, and they think you can fix that problem.
Yeah.
And that's again the importance of building those relationships with the state legislature, with county council, because with the resources that together we have, we should do it.
Right.
But stormwater is not sexy. We've just borrowed a lot of money to do a total rework throughout the city. We just refinanced the bonds so that it's not costing any, it's coming out of the stormwater fees, not out of the general fund. And we not only have room to finish Mossy Oaks, which was the worst, 800 acres into the floodplain, but we've got areas in the downtown area, in the Pigeon Point area, and you know, those problems, when you hear a lot of them, can get lost. And you have to, and you have the compassion to understand this, is that if I'm someone and my yard keeps flooding, it's ruining my day.
Yes.
It's ruining my day.
Indeed.
And I need the attention of someone who's there, if only to listen, if only to direct them.
Right.
So again, that falls into your into your toolbox of skills. So I'm very excited. Any concerns about running?
No, not at all. Not at all. Other than, I think when I shared with you, I said, you know, I just really want to do the work, you know, and bypass this process that you have to go through to get there.
Yeah.
And so, you know, then I later thought, I said, well, you know, I'm willing to go through this because I really want actually to get an opportunity to serve on the council to help make a difference. And it's just simple because my slogan says I'm ready to serve, and it's as simple as that. It's the time in my life for me to do that. I think that's the calling on my life at this time to do that. I prayed on it earnestly. I prayed on it really hard. I didn't want this to be something that I was just frivolously doing. I wanted to make sure this is something that I'm going to help make a difference. And so I'm ready to give of myself. Anything that I do, I give 100% to that. So I'm just ready to do. I think that's the calling on my life at this particular time. And so I'm just ready.
You know, to win, it's a game of addition. It's counting votes. There are X number of votes.
Right.
You need X number of votes to win. There's 6 candidates. There are 2 seats. The top 2 vote getters will be elected to city council.
Right.
You and I have been talking about what I think, from my questions, have brought out all of the reasons that I've put my wholehearted support. I'm asking people who've supported me in a way that I haven't done before, because I believe that it's time for that compassion and for that understanding and for that rebuilding a bridge between people and their government, and I see that. So we've got a lot of people out there looking at us, and you've been talking to me. I'm only 1 vote, and you got it.
Right.
Is there anything you want to say to me?
Well, I just want to say to everybody out there, first of all, thank you for watching and coming in on my first live. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. So I just want to ask you to give me that opportunity to serve you, because that's what I would do. And it's simple as that. I don't have any grandiose ideas about being the next great elected official. Is that I actually want to do the work. I think it's, as I said before, I think it's a calling on my life now, that I give myself and be of service to this community in this capacity, because I've been doing it for a number of years. And so I'm asking you for your vote. I'm asking for you to give me that opportunity. I think we vote on November 3rd. Look for Scott Allen Gibbs on the ballot and vote for me.
Okay, and you can do more than that. I'll say, as someone involved in campaigns, you could offer to volunteer. You could give us your email address so Scott can keep you posted as the campaign develops. You could host an event like this for your friends. This is the new coffee party, or cocktail party, as some might call it.
That's true.
You could volunteer to make calls. You could volunteer to get people right. So there are a lot of things. And so if people go to your website, I believe there are ways to not only donate money, which money is the mother of politics, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it's not as grotesque as the hundreds of millions of dollars that we're seeing nationally.
Right.
It's nickels and dimes compared to that, and you've done very well.
And I do want to give a shout out to those of you who have contributed thus far, and from far and near. And so thank you so much for that support and that love. Yeah.
And email addresses, if you're willing to put up a sign in your yard, that could be very helpful, because in the campaign world, there's a battle of signs. People run around counting signs. And signs don't win votes. Signs just give name recognition.
Right.
But they remind people and your friends, because the electoral process, but really politics, is about linking friends. And we're now at the point, not linking friends to govern yet. We're linking friends to start a movement that's going to support the compassion, the energy, the time, the focus that you're willing. But if we don't know you, if we don't have your email address, if we don't know how to find you, but you'd like a sign in your yard or at your business, so let us know.
Right. And you can go to www.scottgibbsforbeaufortcitycouncil.com, and there you are able to actually volunteer and do all those wonderful things the mayor just mentioned. And I would certainly appreciate that support.
Now that's
Scott Gibbs for BeaufortCityCouncil.com.
Absolutely. Scott Gibbs for BeaufortCityCouncil.com.
Yes.
And maybe some of the complaints I get every day will start going to Scott Gibbs for City Council, for Beaufort City Council. It'll take some of the work off of me.
Right.
We're in this. We've got 8 weeks to go.
Yes.
The clock is ticking. We do need support, as does every candidate. And I'm going to be out there.
Thank you.
This is the equivalent of Scott and I going door to door, where I introduce him to my friends, and hopefully we'll have access to this and other videos, and we plan to do other events like this. If you've got 10, 12, 20 friends you'd like to meet Scott to get a close-up look at him, we're capable of organizing an event like this so that Scott can actually go into their homes safely.
Right.
Through technology, and he's got a wonderful team of advisors and volunteers who are working with him. So it's a movement. It's moving, and only 8 weeks to go. Right. So we have a couple more minutes.
Well, let me give a shout out to that team, my team, who have come forth to help me with this effort. This is a new venture for me, and everybody has come on board 100% behind me, and so I have to give a shout out to them and to thank them so very much.
A lot of energy.
Yeah.
The question is like the steamroller.
Yeah.
Let's get going. Got to go faster,
right.
Because there is a finish line on November 3rd.
Yes.
There's one point that a lot of people have been, in my view, intentionally, and that's a cynical view, but confused about voting. And
yes.
The legislature is still making some decisions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to vote because I'm eligible because of my age.
Right.
I'm going to vote as soon as I can vote. I'm going to go down there. I'm going to vote in person.
Exactly.
John Galt Road. I'm going to have it over with.
Exactly.
So that it's done. So I would encourage that. I believe you can get mail-in ballots. I believe in the Postal Service. I trust in the Postal Service. But given the chaos today, you know, if you can get there and
Yes.
go there, I believe there'll be a what they call a COVID exception, so that you don't have to be over 65 or you don't have to be at work to go ahead and vote early. And I think your campaign plans to, as we identify people who would need it, to help them get to the polls, or to at least explain what has been intentionally made to be very complicated,
Right.
when it should be one of the most simple things in the world.
Yes.
How do I vote for my representative, for my congressman, senator, president, city council member?
Right.
So I think your group is preparing to be able to guide people through that.
Yes.
So when they call you, they're not going to be trying to sell you anything. They're going to basically ask you to consider
Right.
to consider Scott Gibbs.
Exactly.
It doesn't cost a penny to know him. But I think and I hope that those who've been with us for this 30 minutes have a feeling that they've gotten to know Scott. He's a very, very unusual man. I like to call him a young man because he's so young in spirit. He's young in enthusiasm, compassion, and energy. So chronological age doesn't matter. But
Yes.
this is, in my view, a young man who is offering himself to go to work for you in the city, to be available, to answer phone calls. Unfortunately, to even come look at potholes that the city can't fix, but he can help you find somebody. So I think we have a huge opportunity, and I'm all in for the next 8 weeks, and I'd like to invite y'all to join Scott and come all in as well.
All right. And thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.